It's Monday, and so the Roach King himself, Asmongold, has found himself in a spot of drama over foreign aid. With a right-wing cope here, and yes, the left's only form of memeage is to appropriate right-wing memes for their own usage, says greasy gamer Asmongold addresses people dying of easily preventable diseases, which, well, one, if they are so easily preventable, why aren't the Africans already doing so? Why isn't the shaman calling the lightning to cure all of these silly little diseases? Oh, that's of course because, 2, these easily preventable diseases are only easily preventable by a Western standard. In other words, a society affluent with resources and doctors. The infrastructure required to train them, to encourage them, and to see a steady flow of qualified personnel with the equipment required to handle them. Which, despite over $1 trillion worth of foreign aid, Africa has yet to manage to produce on anywhere even remotely resembling the scale required to prevent these easily preventable diseases. But we are getting somewhat off the point, as Asmongold responds, correct, I don't want my money sent to Africa or any other PvP server shitholes of the world. It is unethical to, through the threat of force, take people's tax money and then give it away to foreigners. Cheap, emotional blackmail. He is, of course, 100% correct here, and if anything, for once, the barometer of normie opinion might actually be lagging a little bit behind the curve, as I would like to take this opportunity to talk a little bit more wildly about the idea of foreign aid, and how we went from, like 30 years ago, we must help, it is our moral duty as advanced nations to aid the third world, to, I don't know, this doesn't seem to be helping. How much of the aid is actually reaching its intended target? To my position of the modern day simply saying, let's abolish this entire idea, the entire infrastructure of foreign aid from the ground up, and then maybe instituted again in 100 years' time or so. As that is a rather remarkable turnaround, and one that has been bubbling in the public consciousness for quite some time. The next one here is, this is what a maggot diet of pure spite and cruelty does to someone. These people are just evil. Where Asmongold responds, I'm evil because I don't want my taxes allocated to Africans over Americans. Are you retarded? No, he's not retarded, he's simply a left-winger, as this is one of the key moral divides between the left and the right, according to Jonathan Haidt's rather brilliant moral foundations theory. See, this was a long-term study which broke down human opinions into 5 fundamental pillars: harm, purity, loyalty, authority, and fairness, with all of these having their opposite pillars as well, like harm, for example, also having care. Now, for the right wing, we like things like authority, loyalty, and purity, but we also value harm/care and fairness to fairly significant positive degrees. Meanwhile, the left practically entirely eschew purity, loyalty, and authority and place all of their values on fairness and harm/care. And not even do they downrank the other 3, they view them as active impediments to the 2 they do care about. Thus, to a progressive, not wanting to send all of your tax dollars to Africa is evil, because in their mind, that is the maximum amount of care you can give. You must focus on helping first. Help and fairness above all other concerns, like, for example, loyalty to your fellow countrymen. So this isn't retardation, it's merely brainworms, basically. And this then continues, like Curly, why is it always Africa? As we now arrive at the I am an actual idiot stage of the conversation, where we try to obfuscate and diffuse the problem at hand. Why do they always say, I don't want my tax money dollars to be given to black and brown people? You never hear them say it, I'm tired of my tax dollars going to Norway or any other white country, it's always Africa. Well, as a Norwegian myself, allow me to point out that you don't actually give us any foreign aid. Nothing. Zero, zip, nil, null. In fact, if anything, we're probably giving you foreign aid. Here's the thing. Foreign aid is a near exclusively European thing. I believe China and India are like number 5 or 6 or 7 or something like that, whereas the greatest contributors of foreign aid are obviously America at the very top, then you've got the European Union and a smattering of other European countries, which, by the way, double up on their donations as they both give money through the EU and then also individually on top of that. The reason why nobody ever complains about it is because we're not giving any money to Norway. Indeed, Asmongold points that out too, because Africa is the biggest example of it being a waste of money. There's a key part. Norway's a functional Western country, so even if we did give them money, at least it would be going to something worthwhile. Now, we could delve deeper into that one, but let's not for the moment. So, again, US aid to America, $1.2 billion in aid to the Democratic Republic of Congo, followed closely with the same amount to 1.2, otherwise Ethiopia, and then 1.2 billion again, with a grand total of $74 billion spent in 2022 and $71.9 billion spent in 2023. That is a fuck ton of money. That is a ridiculous quantity of cash that simply disappear. And there are two main reasons why people have turned against this idea in its entirety, basically, because it's not that people don't want to give. I am old and wizened enough to remember the telethons, where there were these huge foreign aid rallies on television. All of the celebrities would come out, they'd sing, they'd dance, they'd show you clips from Africa, they'd do all kinds of charity shows, and they'd be like, call in and give $5 today. Well, that $5 is more like $100 today to even make a dent after inflation and the increasing paychecks of the CEOs in charge of the NGOs. And by the way, non-profit organization is one of the biggest crocks of shit in human history, linguistically speaking. But again, this was huge back in the day. Enormous televised drives of this. I remember it was basically a party evening where everybody gathered around the television to watch all of the artists and all of the people, and you'd obviously have children carrying little cans to receive donations all across the country. Now, that happened in Norway. I don't know if that happened anywhere else, but the point is, we were eager and willing to give. So what changed? Two things. Firstly, we never really saw anything change, and secondly, all of the people we were helping came here. So, hold on a second there. Let me compute this real quick. We don't even know how much money we've spent on Africa. We actually don't have the number. We're not sure. We know it's somewhere north of $1 trillion, but we don't know. We've actually lost track of the sheer quantity of cash poured into this continent over the course of decades. And yet still, they show up on massive inflated rubber dinghies going, our countries suck. Can we come live in yours? No, that wasn't the deal. We were supposed to help you where you were. We were supposed to raise all of you up, give you educations, give you the opportunity to become doctors, engineers, leaders, politicians, to raise your nations up. We've been building your roads and cities for the last 200 years for this purpose. Why are you coming here? This, of course, then led to our countries beginning to crack under the weight. You coming here? Why are you coming here? This in turn, of course, then led to our countries beginning to crack under the weight of supporting a massive amount of people we were never prepared to support. Our infrastructure was set up to receive people who were genuine refugees of war, a few thousand people a year, maybe, if that, and now many countries are receiving millions. Our nations culturally, economically, societally, are simply cracking under the weight. We are no longer the first world nations of the late 90s, with seemingly limitless resources and an eager ability and will to help. It's not happening anymore. And this, of course, also comes down to the waste. Let's take, for example here, one of the largest NGO organizations operating in Africa, CARE, and they claim that they are efficient. Your donation does more when you give it to CARE. 90% of the money CARE spends goes forward our life-saving work that saves and transforms lives. Well, thank God. So, this is finally an organization that sends the majority to the actual causes in question. One wonders where the remaining 10% goes to, but details, right? And is given fantastic reviews as well, Charity Watch. So for every $14 they spend, they raise 100. Great, 91% program percentage. Program percentage. What does that mean? Well, that means that the money goes to the various things surrounding delivering the aid and operating in the areas. Now, they do have a breakdown on their website for their fiscal year, but it's very vague as to what these programs indicate. But if we go down here and take a look at the salaries portion, present CEO Mary M. Nunn, $504,736 in compensation. Yama U Mensha, VIP Intel Program Ops, $373,396. Gloria D. Steele, COO, $352,714. These three individuals here eat up damn near $1 million in salaries alone. Not to mention bonuses or any additional compensation they may receive. And indeed, the wages being granted to their operatives are, shall we say, luxurious. From what I could tell as well, this company employs something 50-60 people, with the basic salary being north of $40,000, and specialist salaries being up to $170,000, $100,000, $66,000 to $90,000. This, by the way, is why non-profit organizations is a very bullshit term because, oh no, it is for profit. Not for the company's profit, mind you, but for the people working at it. This company, in all due likelihood, spends millions, absolute millions, on just salaries alone. And the rest of those programs, things they talked about, they go to things like transportation, to logistics, to various expenses in field, etc., etc. And the worst thing is, the majority of the aid they received was actually just in things like food stuff. Things that can already be transported directly to the location, meaning that what they're basically charging for is oversight half the time. Now, I'm sure a good amount of this money does actually go to the people who need it, or at least I bloody well hope so, but the amount of waste is simply not tolerable. There are people earning way too much money supposedly aiding. If anything, it is better to do governmental aid and then put anyone who actually does it on the minimum fucking salary. There should be something, if you absolutely want to do it, that is done in addition to any other duties you may have. Volunteer work, practically. We need to have, both politics mind you, and NGO work like this, be legally bound to basically charity work. Alright? There should not be an opportunity for private enrichment doing things like this. Will we ever be able to do anything like that? Probably not, but the point is, the will to give has been whittled down over years and years and years, to the point where people now, well, they want their money to go to themselves and their own people, and there is nothing wrong with that. We have tried pouring billions into Africa. And you can absolutely then also argue things like, oh, we don't spend that much. For example, I believe this was, 1.2% of the federal budget of the US spent on US aid, or was that foreign aid in total? Foreign aid in total. And okay, 1.2%, that's not that much, right? Well, it's still $71.9 billion of a $1 trillion budget. Can we honestly say that there is absolutely nothing in the US that could use that money better? What about rolling blackouts in California? Actually, fuck those people. Upgrading the electricity network so the rest of America doesn't have to be like California. I believe even this was a telethon for injured veterans. Doesn't that need any money? What about your health system? You've created a public health system that doesn't pay for itself and drives an even greater deficit every single year. Couldn't it use some additional billions? And if absolutely nothing else can be used for it, how about, I don't know, just a mad idea, paying down some of your debt? The point is, America needs that $70 billion more. And of course, then we can launch into the left versus right-wing argument of going, but listen, this black child is starving. Okay, well, that sucks. That is unironically awful. And I wish that wasn't the case. However, it's not my child. That's the position we are at. As cold and heartless as it may sound, that is the position we are at. And we actually do have to put ourselves first. If it will balm your conscience, you can even cushion the blow by pointing out that, listen, if Western society is not able to take care of itself first, all of that foreign aid, it's not merely going to slow to a trickle, it will actually cease entirely. The foreign aid is not as a result of any inherent need to do this. It is as an example of human goodness. It is those who have choosing voluntarily to give to those who do not. And even already, public contributions to charities in many cases outpace that of the government. People should be allowed to choose, or at the very least, be given the option to deliberately choose not to give it to these entities. So, yes, no. Foreign aid, well, one, it's a scam. Two, it is clearly not effective as it is not producing the desired outcomes, unless we assume that the desired outcome in this case is enriching a bunch of CEOs, in which case, it's doing exactly what we hoped it would do. And three, the public can only be preyed upon for so long before they eventually decide, no, I'm not going to do this anymore. You have failed to present any convincing argument for why this is good or why this helps. Indeed, even the recent, I remember, the recent iShowSpeed tour in Africa was fantastic because it convinced so many people that Africa was actually a paradise. What was it, Nairobi? Some major city, I remember, where they were like, listen, Africa's a vibrant power. We don't need no foreign aid. We can stand on our own. It's time for the world to see this. And I commented, okay, so we can cut the foreign aid then. That got several hundred angry people going, no, you don't understand. We need that. Yes, because contrary to the picture shown by a multi-millionaire being paid millions by these countries' tourist agencies to go there, the reality tends to be a pinch harder than what can be seen from a plexiglass window 100 stories up in the air while sipping margaritas at a luxury bar. Unsurprisingly. Foreign aid. It was a fun project, it was a nice idea, but frankly, it doesn't work. We know it doesn't work, we've exhausted our patience with it not working, and frankly, at this point, we might as well return to the foreign aid system that did work. Colonialism. Listen, that built road, that built infrastructure, that built cities, that built schools, and it created a far more well-educated and established society, even able, in cases like South Africa, which, to call nice, quote, managed to turn the desert green. If we're gonna spend the money anyways. Anywho, thank you all very much for watching. I have been Arch. Cancel foreign aid. All of it until we've fixed our own house, and then we'll think about it. Have a good day.